Insomnia, sleepless nights, they're horrible, aren't they? But I heard that if you listen to all of Horror Studio One's videos on repeat, you'll end up sleeping. I don't know if it's true. You guys say you sleep to my videos anyways, right? So without further ado, grab a blanket, turn off your lights for true, scary, I can't sleep, horror stories that happened, part 2. And I'm in a hotel, by the way. It happened in my bedroom. It happened in my bedroom at the age of 10. I always had trouble sleeping and spent most nights tossing and turning. I was a horror film fanatic as a kid, and being scared was something I didn't have much experience with. I was not afraid of the dark, nor was I easily swayed by strange sounds or odd encounters. I did, however, know when to haul ass out of a situation, or to find a trusted adult. I always slept with my closet doors open, which will come to be of some significance later in the story. I should also mention that my family home was in a heavily wooded area, in what may refer to as the middle of nowhere. One night, around 1 a.m., I awoke to the sound coming from underneath my bed. It sounded like one of my cats was scratching themselves with one of their feet or doing something that caused a thumping beneath me. I had heard this sound many times before, and its source had always been one of my fuzzy friends. So this time I didn't look. I closed my eyes and tried to resume my slumber. I turned over onto my left side, which left me facing the wall against which my bed was pressed up. I heard the sound again, and thinking my kitty was directly beneath me, I said, "Good night." I was able to fall asleep once again. The next time I awoke, it was to a surreal and shocking scene. The sheet and comforter of my bed were no longer covering me. I saw a man standing over my bed, poking me with his finger. And the way in which he did it was truly horrifying. It was not the way that a child would poke a friend in jest. It was as if he was touching another human being for the first time, exploring the sensation of the tip of his index finger jabbing at flesh. What I saw was so unbelievable, so impossibly strange, that I believed I was dreaming. I tried desperately to awake from my nightmare, but to no avail. The poking continued. He poked at my chest, my belly, my legs, my arms. Paralyzed and scared shitless, I yelled, "Wake up!" And with this, the man threw himself to the floor and closed his eyes, as if he was trying to lead me to believe that he was asleep or dead. I have no idea. It was at this point I realized I could not have been dreaming. I somehow found the ability to move, and I jumped from the top of my bed over the man lying on the floor next to me and ran towards my parents' room. When I got to their bedroom door, something came over me. I told myself that this was all impossible, that there was no way that a person could have entered our home without breaking in, as we had always kept every door and window locked at night. I have seen many strange things in my home whilst either falling asleep or waking up. By the third or fourth time, after speaking to my mom or dad about it, I knew that it was my mind playing tricks on me. Plush toys did not have the ability to turn and whisper into each other's ears. Do not ask why, dear reader, as I have no explanation for you. But I turned away from my parents' bedroom door and decided to hastily check the house for a break-in. What I found was that nothing was out of the ordinary. No broken windows or locks, no busted doors, nothing. I assured myself that I had been dreaming or hallucinating, and I blame my obsession with horror for this. I made my way down the long, dark, and narrow hallway to my bedroom. I peeked inside and saw no one. I turned on the light, got down on the floor just outside the doorway, and looked under the bed. Nothing. I proceeded to check both of my windows for signs of a break-in, which were not present. Both windows were locked and closed. I knew it! I was totally seeing things! I crawled back into bed and decided to watch some TV in order to calm myself down and distract my thoughts of the scary as hell dream and hallucination I just had. I turned on the TV, flip to a channel which a seemingly boring program. This has always made me sleepy, and put the remote control on my bedside table. I was lying on my right side, facing away from the wall that I mentioned previously, and as I lay there, my eyes began to adjust to the dark room with a faint light from the TV screen. Just beyond the TV, I saw something that made my heart sink into the pit of my stomach. Inside my closet, with one of the doors now slightly closed, I saw the man standing perfectly still, facing the wall, hiding, waiting for me to fall asleep, I imagine. I couldn't breathe, I couldn't move. I sat and stared at the man in my closet for what seemed like minutes, but it was likely only a few seconds. I quietly got out of bed, hoping the man wouldn't notice, and that my dad could catch him hiding in the closet. I once again made my way to my parents' bedroom door, and still remaining as quietly as I possibly could, went inside. I shook my mom and dad at the same time, and when they awoke, I said, "Shh, don't make any sound. There's someone in my closet." Both of my parents jumped up and said, "What?" I repeated myself and asked them to please call 911. My mom immediately picked up the phone. Neither of my parents doubted my claim, as I always been honest and forthright. They both knew there was no way I was making this up or that I was mistaken. I'm sure that the look I must have had on my face made it clear that this was really happening. My dad told my mom and I that he was going to look and urged us to stay in their bedroom and lock the door, so we did. At this point, I was beyond scared. I didn't know what the man was capable of, whether he had a weapon, or whether my dad was safe. I just stood in the room with my mom and cried, and after what felt like hours, my dad knocked on the door and told me it was him, that it was okay to open the door. My mom unlocked the door and let my dad inside. I said something to the effect of, "Did you get him?" And my dad looked at me with the most unsettling and confused look imaginable. He said, "There was no one there." I assured him that there was indeed a man inside my room and that he had been poking me. My dad said that he had checked every inch of the house and found no one. He had also checked the doors and the windows, just as I had done. Then it hit me, "You must have had a key." As I said this, my parents looked at each other in absolute terror. Our nearest neighbor, a trusted and beloved friend whom we considered family, was in possession of a key to our house, as she had regularly babysat me since I was a toddler. She was the only person outside of my immediate family with a key to our home. Soon after this revelation, the police arrived, took statements, checked around our property, and left. None of us got any sleep that night. The next day, my dad went to my neighbor's house and asked if she knew where her key to her house was. She said yes, and when she went to show him, she saw that it was missing. Her home had no signs of a break-in, and she had always kept her doors and windows locked. My parents had all the locks of our doors changed, and opted to never again give a key to anyone, except in the wake of an emergency. I never discovered the identity of the man that lurked in my bedroom that night. The event left me traumatized, and it took me a very long time to accept what had happened and to move on. My sleeping trouble turned into a full-on insomnia, and for about a decade I was unable to sleep without a light on. It has been 20 years since that night, and apart from my parents, I have never told a soul about it until now. I've actually found writing this to be a very cathartic, and I'm glad that I stumbled across Let's Not Meet. My heart goes out to anyone who has suffered a trauma in their lives, and I hope that you are all able to find peace within yourselves. That one time I prostituted myself. When I was 14 years old, I was going through what my parents call teen angst. I would get aggressive over the smallest provocations. I got suspended from school for fighting. I started becoming mean and intolerable to be around, but I would be so nice and apologetic the next week or so, and the cycle would repeat itself. Hostility, mood swings, agitation, insomnia, etc. Unbeknownst to them or myself at the time, I was suffering from bipolar disorder symptoms. Around my manic episodes, I would do really stupid things. I would put myself in potentially fatal situations. Most of my friends stopped dealing with me, so I looked for new friends in the wrong places. I ended up coping with my episodes using illegal substances and alcohol. It was August, and school was starting back soon. I was having a really bad manic episode. I thought I was invincible, and everyone around me was jealous because they weren't having as much fun as me. I thought I was smarter than everybody. My parents took me to a psychiatrist, but I never spoke a word to her. I never even looked at her. I was in denial that something was very wrong with me. Around this time, my sense of danger and fear was very, very low. And this particular manic episode was lengthy and lasted about 3 weeks. 1 week into the episode, I came up with a perfect idea that I should run away from home. I would survive by selling weed, and I would become the greatest cannabis saleswoman that lived. For those who aren't familiar with bipolar disorder, understand that while manic, sufferers can be delusional and grandiose ideas and thoughts. I packed up a few items, stole $327 from my dad's wallet, copped a huge amount of weed, and went to a seedier part of town. I checked into a motel room. The woman never asked for identification, probably because I looked 18 or 19, or she just didn't give a fuck. I went 3 days on the run, and only sold about 2 bags of weed. I smoked until there was no more to sell. I had also spent a majority of my money on booze and a new dress. I had to think of a way to make some more cash. I didn't want to go back home to my jealous family. I was coming back from a restaurant when a middle-aged dude in a blue car pulled up beside the curb. He rolled down the windows and offered me $100 to have sex with me. I agreed. Hold on, I wasn't actually gonna prostitute myself. I thought I was so smart and so conniving that I would just put the money in my hand and I would run off with it. Bipolar friggin' sucks. So, we go to a motel not too far from the one I was hiding out at. I had it planned perfectly. I would run out with the money in my hand. I believed that I was strong enough to fight a 5'11" man who had a lot of muscle. I believed that I wasn't in any danger. We go inside the room, which smelled like feet. I ask for the money. Dude ignores me and starts kissing me and trying to take my clothes off. Most sane females would have been frightened, but I wasn't exactly sane. So, I wasn't worried about rape or injury. I forcefully pulled away from him, and he slapped the shit out of me. He slapped me so hard that I had a brief moment of clarity and ran to the bathroom and locked the door. I opened the window and just jumped out. My adrenaline and shock eventually wore off, and I actually laughed at the whole thing. Luckily, a police officer recognized me as a missing person and took me home to my parents before I could do anything else dangerously stupid. I think back on the situation. I don't find anything about my actions humorous. My stomach churns a little bit about thinking how he could have raped, even murdered me. I am now taking medication for my illness. I was going to use a throwaway account to write this encounter, because even writing about my disorder anonymously is hard to do. There's a huge stigma to mental illness already. I know I was wrong for thinking I was going to rip him off, but fuck it. He would have deserved it, right? So, downvote, upvote, comment, or eat a Pop-Tart. I'll be reminiscing about my bad decisions in life while eating a Pop-Tart. Old man in the forest stalks me. Long-time lurker, first post, yada yada yada. Alright, so a little bit of background on me before I start the story. I struggled all my life with severe anxiety. I used to have crazy blackout panic attacks when I was little, which as I got older, manifested into depression and insomnia. I often overthink things as I try to go to sleep, so I have a hard time sleeping. When I do get decent sleep, I often experience sleep paralysis, which has made me terrified to sleep for a normal amount of time. This all plays into the story, as I often get up and walk around to thinking to calm myself if I am having an anxiety attack. So, about a month ago, it was 2 a.m. or so, and I could not get to sleep. I was having trouble with my ex, and couldn't stop overthinking everything. As per usual, I got up and wandered. I walked up to a park a few miles away from my house. It's usually empty that time of night, and I often would go into the middle of this foresty area just to kind of sit and to calm down. Being surrounded by nature often helps me calm myself. I was sitting on a log and listening to some sad music, trying to avoid my thoughts, just doing my usual ritual. I guess you could say that. All of a sudden, I heard leaves rustle about 10 to 20 yards away from me. I looked and saw nothing, so I figured it was a small animal, and I continued doing my thing. After a few minutes, I heard more rustling and heavy breathing. I have a friend who suffers from the same thing I do, and sometimes we'll meet up at the park and talk about stuff. I had texted him saying that we should meet up there, but he did not respond. I thought maybe it was him climbing up the hill where I was at, so I loudly whispered his name. No answer. The breathing got closer and heavier, and I didn't want to deal with whatever it was. I've read stuff on here long enough to know better. I got up and briskly walked to the other side of the park. I sat down on a bench and took my earbuds out so I could listen to what was going on around me. I then heard something that made my hair stand up on the back of my neck, and my heart dropped. I heard the creepiest, sadistic-sounding laughing and wheezing from what sounded like 100 to 150 feet away. I was in a pretty open area, though, and couldn't see anyone. I was scanning the tree line when I saw him. This creepy, wiry old man with a cane coming out of the brush, staring straight at me. He started hustling, moving much quicker than I would think that someone as old as he was, 70s maybe, could possibly move. I got up and started walking, hoping he didn't actually see me, and he started cackling loudly and yelling, "Get back here, kid!" I'm a rather big 17-year-old guy who was wearing a black hoodie covering most of my face. I'm often mistaken as much older than my actual age, and with the hood up in the dark, he would have no idea that I was a kid, unless he had been close enough to me to clearly see my face. From a distance, I looked like a grown man. I started to run. As I got to the nearest exit, I turned, and he was somehow only a little bit behind me, just a little over arm's length. I don't know how he caught up to me. I mean, I'm not the fastest runner, but I know I'm faster than some old dude with a cane. When I looked back, he grinned with his big, toothless smile and said, "Why are you running? I just want to be friends." I sprinted home, zigzagging through different blocks, so I knew I'd lose him, locked all my doors and windows, and went to bed. It was a weird encounter, but I've had weirder before at that park. The thing that makes this weird is that my manager at work told me that some old guy came in last week saying, "Is my name in today?" I wanted to talk to him. I really wanted to be his friend, but he doesn't seem to want to be mine. I don't know how he figured out my name, let alone where I work. But I am scared shitless of what else this guy knows. I'm in a band, and we were in the local newspaper a while ago, so that could be how he got the name, but who knows? My manager told me she'll call the police if he comes back. I'm really freaked out by that specifically. I'll update this post if anything else happens, but until then, creepy old dude from the park. Let's never ever actually meet.